Throughout the history of Yu-Gi-Oh, there have not been many decks which were tier 0, even fewer within Duel Links. The new ban list shattered the previous 2-deck meta, demolishing Dark Lord and leaving a dent in Blue Eyes. In doing so, the game was heading into a diverse meta. Oh, sorry, did I say diverse meta? I meant to say a meta possibly warped around Harpy, the most competitive tournament in Duel Links, besides the Stage 2s of KC Cups, KC Grand Tournaments, and Region Rep Qualifiers, known as the Meta Championship Series, happened on Saturday. The breakdown of the MCS looks like this. Very similar to this breakdown here from 2019, back when full power tier 0 Six Samurai was dominating the meta. After these MCS results, there have been some people saying Harpy is tier 0, with some saying it's not tier 0. Is Harpy tier 0? Let's find out. The bulk of this video is going to be me taking a crack at this whole tier 0 thing, then to finish things up, I'll go over the Harpy build I used to get 3rd place in the MCS. So let's start from the bottom. What is the tier list in Duel Links and how is it made? The tier list is made by the Top Player Council. The Top Player Council is a group of 16 players who have recently performed well in the competitive scene of Duel Links. The competitive scene referring to the second stage of KC Cups, KC Grand Tournaments, and Region Rep Qualifiers, alongside a bunch of Duel Links Metas events, the big one being the MCS. They are the ones who make the tier list, which then gets posted on the DLM website. There's a whole point ladder system that rotates every few months that determines who is able to be a part of the Top Player Council, ensuring that those who play in the current meta have a good understanding of it. The tier list is updated once a week, and is made using the guideline of what would be expected to perform well in an MCS if one were to happen every week. The MCS is a monthly occurring tournament, and like most tournaments uses a 7-card side deck, meaning that side deck and best of 3 format is taken into consideration when making the tier list. Decks which reach King of Games have no influence on the tier list, however the meta is similar on both the ranks ladder and in tournaments. Someone who has no interest in playing in tournaments and only plays on the ladder could still look at the tier list and be informed of what the best decks are. The power rankings on the DLM website are a different thing from the tier list. They are auto-generated and are computed on results from DLM events, KC Cups and events alike, and unlike the tier list, decks which reach King of Games. The power rankings are measured purely by results. The tier list is more so based on what the Top Player Council thinks is best. Just because a deck is popular, it doesn't mean it's good enough. Predicting results of a hypothetical Meta Championship Series is a recommendation given to members of a Top Player Council. Like every event, it is vulnerable to random scenarios happening, which is why the definitions for tier 1, 2 and 3 are relatively open-ended. For example, when Ojama made top 32 of an MCS, everyone didn't turn around and go, yep, tier 0. The reason why the Meta Championship Series is held to such a high standard is because it is one of the most competitive events. There is an entry fee, a cap on the player limit, loads of mods, a massive stream, and the prize pool is always really high. The KC Cup, KC Grand Tournament, and Region Rep Qualifier are the highest level of competitive events, since they all connect to the World Championship itself. But these events only happen once every few months. To summarise, the Duel Links Meta tier list is the Top Player Council informing people of what they think the best decks are. So now that we know about the tier list, let's travel back in time 2 years. The last time a deck took up so much of top 32 was Six Samurai. The deck had such a huge dominance over the meta and was considered tier 0. Given the similarities in these breakdowns, shouldn't that also make Harpy tier 0? Well, not exactly. Tier 0 has been given a variety of definitions throughout the years, but the main principle of a tier 0 deck is that the format is heavily defined by it. To perform well in a competitive event, you either play the tier 0 deck or you play a deck built to beat it. The gap in strength between the tier 0 deck and the next best deck is incredibly large, and that is exactly why Harpy is not tier 0. With Six Samurai it was the uncontested best deck because its engine with 3 dojo was naturally stronger than everything else. However, the gap between the strength of Harpy and something like Blue Eyes or Fire King isn't actually that large. Rather than tier 0, Harpy instead feels like a solo tier 1 deck. It's the best deck because the power ceiling of every other deck isn't particularly high. The deck breakdown from the MCS alone would suggest that Harpy is tier 0, but when taking a look at the bigger picture, it's unlikely that Harpy is able to maintain these results for as long as Six Samurai did. Therefore, Harpy is the best deck, but is not tier 0. Instead, it is the solo tier 1 deck. It's the biggest threat to every deck in the meta, but not to the degree of being objectively uncontested. Before I wrap up the video, I'll say a few things about my Harpy build that I used to get 3rd in the MCS. I did use free Book of Moon. The card is not needed. There are plenty of good replacements, such as Lance, Chalice, Offerings, Canadia, Fiendish Chain, or even reducing the number of cards in the deck to make it closer to 20. Plenty of high-performing Harpy decks in the current meta do not use Book of Moon at all. One of the unique things I brought to my Harpy build was the inclusion of Cyber Harpy Lady. Normally, Harpy decks choose to use Double Lady 1 as their fuel for Elegant Egotist. Instead, I used a copy of Cyber Harpy Lady. I did this because I was not using Tie-Back Binds as the skill, but rather using Hunting Ground as the skill. In the mirror match, Cyber Harpy attacks over all the small monsters, and against Fire King, she can crash with Arvata. The other thing that stands out in my builds is the use of Party. Party is a really fun card to use and is super strong when it resolves, reviving your entire graveyard and generating card advantage with Perfuma and Oracle at the same time is super crazy. Party is also the main reason why I used 1 Harpist, 1 Oracle instead of 2 Oracle. I did this because Harpist pairs well with Party. So in general, Harpy best deck, yes? Tier 0, no. That will do it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching and have a perfectly balanced rest of your day. See ya.